You know what you want. You've thought about it, planned it, maybe even started, but you're still not moving toward it consistently. And you've probably been told that this is a discipline problem, but it's not. It's a safety problem. Because if discipline actually worked, you still wouldn't be stuck. So let's talk about what's really going on. Because I know I'm not alone in feeling that something is shifting. We can feel that something wants to change, that there's a forward momentum or a path that's pulling us forward. And yet there's still a part of us that just doesn't want to move. If you've ever tried to just push through that, forcing your body, abandoning yourself, abandoning those parts, not listening, you know what happens if you do that. It doesn't sustain, right? Maybe you'll gain some momentum, but it doesn't last. So today we're going to talk about what does actually last. How do we gain momentum and safety at the same time? And a perfect example of this is me today with this video. I love this topic. I could talk about it backwards, forwards, sideways. I had the title, I had the thumbnail, I knew exactly what I wanted to say, but I kept finding these really sneaky ways of avoidance, right? It's too hot, I don't like the lighting, I'm tired, I had clients today. And on the surface, these make sense, right? They make sense as reasons as to not to do the video today. It's just let me just do it tomorrow. Instead of forcing or avoiding, at some point, I finally got really curious about what was going on in my body. And what I discovered through this mechanism of just staying with sensation was really profound. And actually, at the end of the video, I'm going to walk you through what I did. And so you can try it with yourself next time you're feeling stuck or avoidant. Actually, as I was doing the audio test for this video, a card fell out and it was a Seven of Cups reversed. Now, the Seven of Cups is about having too many options, too many opportunities, and not being able to pick one. So perfect for me and perfect for this video. I am actually doing a group program called Creative Rewilding, and I'll talk about that later, but it's just interesting because the first week is about committing to something, and we're actually going to work somatically with what happens in your body when you commit and why so many of us avoid that because there is a narrowing of options. So interesting thing. When we're talking about goals that we want to achieve in the world, we're often told we need to change our behaviors, right? We need more discipline, more consistency, more structure. And these are not incorrect. They're just missing a very, very important step, and that's the body. Because you're not avoiding your goal, you're avoiding how that goal is going to feel in your body. So we want to get really clear and slowed down enough to be able to listen what sensations the body is afraid of, what sensations the body perceives as dangerous. Now, I did a video already about desire and the two different types of desire, aspiration and craving. And if you haven't seen that, before you implement anything from this video, make sure you watch that, because in that video, I talk about how you can see if your desires are actually something that are avoidance or something that you are deeply wanting to participate in the process of. And that's really important because if you're moving towards avoidance, then no matter what strategies you use and how much you tune into your body and do all of these things, you're building something based off of a distortion. So I'll have that video linked down below. It's super short and really helpful. Safety is the most basic function of our human bodies. And for many of us, including myself, who've had really traumatic experiences with the body, we may like to just pretend that we don't have one, but we do. And we are really honored to come into this life in a human form. And we have a lot of responsibility that comes with that, right? This is what the myth of Prometheus shows us. Uranus shows us that we are here with a responsibility of consciousness. And that consciousness includes the fact that we know we have a body, and the body produces certain limitations in our lives. And in order for us to make use of the gifts that we have, this body needs to be somewhat, we need to pay some attention to it. The body will always move toward familiarity and safety instead of growth and the new, which is why we have to retrain our systems to recognize that moving towards this goal is actually not going to be dangerous, right? Because oftentimes I find in my work with myself and with others that our bodies equate certain things like success that we think we want with pressure. the visibility that we think we want with risk, right? And the change and transformation that we think we want with loss. So of course, it's going to help us avoid that. And instead, we move into overthinking or tweaking things or, delaying procrastination, consuming content, right? We get on the scroll. We have these devices that allow us to just completely avoid our entire lives. So let's try something together. Let's try equating safety with momentum again. I want you to think about one idea that you have, one goal that you have, and one vision, something. It could be something creative, but it could also just be something that you're wanting to express to somebody, right? One of the things I often mention is that creativity is not just about art. Creativity is about self expression, how we create a certain moment, how we create an experience. So it might not be any artistic act. It might just be expressing yourself through a text to somebody, saying something to a boss that you've been wanting to say for a really long time that you haven't had the courage to say. So pick one thing. Now, I want you to think about the one step that you can move toward that. Maybe it might be recording something for 30 seconds. Maybe it might be drawing something for a minute. Maybe it might be writing 3 sentences of whatever you want to write about. Maybe it might be crafting a beginning of a script to your boss. Maybe it might be writing a text to somebody. But when you do that, I want you to think about what's happening in your body. I want you to just notice what happens in your body. I don't want you to think about the task at all. And just notice if there's any tension anywhere, if there's buzzing or constriction or heaviness or lightness or openness. What do you feel? And stay with that sensation for 30 seconds. And then you come back to your breath and you notice the rising and falling of your chest as you inhale and exhale. And after you do that, you then re-engage with what you are doing for 2 more minutes. This helps your nervous system equate safety and momentum. Physics shows us that when we observe something, it acts differently. When we observe our emotions, when we observe our sensations, when we give attention to these places in our bodies, that is an action itself, and a huge one at that, a major one at that, a stabilizing one at that. So let me know down below, when you do this, what do you notice in your body? What sensations came up? What emotions came up? Sometimes you might even get a message that came up. That happened to me earlier today. And if this is something that sounds exciting to you, this is what I'm going to be doing in my creative rewilding program. We're going to be using somatics, a little bit of astrology and human design to work with as mirrors. And we're going to create something, not for the act of creation itself, but for the transformation of what happens when we actually move with safety and work on the somatic blocks together in real time. I'd love to have you there if that feels good. And just a reminder that we don't move after we feel ready. We start equating movement with safety. And that's what changes everything. This is what helps us move into a new beginning. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you next time.